Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 3 tight end start sits. Basically, going to be going over my 2 starts and my 2 sits at the tight end position going into Week 3 of the regular season. And I'm also going to be going over my rankings from a 1 to 17 ranking spots. I don't know how many of you start multiple tight ends, but 1 through 17 should be enough to give you a scale of what I think Week 3's tight ends are going to look like by the end of the week. And without further ado, let's get right into it. We ain't got no time to waste. Hey, everybody, how's it going? For those of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel, thank you very much. I appreciate it. If you've got any questions, go down below. Others will be helpful and will answer your questions. Please don't be mean down there and answer with some, cocky, snarky, passive-aggressive remarks. We don't like that, okay? I will get that shit out of there. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, how's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. We're going to start with my starts of the week, okay? We only got 2 at the tight end position. This is generally a shorter video. But anyway, let's get into it. O.J. Howard, okay? A guy that I last week said was a sit of the week. He ended up scoring enough fantasy points to shove it up mine. So the way I see it, going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that got completely torched by Travis Kelce last week. I mean, there is an absolute opportunity, in my opinion, for O.J. Howard to be a relevant fantasy contributor to your team this week. I think you should start him. I think he's a start of the week, and I like him going into Week 3 of the regular season versus the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, though. Okay. My other start of the week, we have George Kittle. I understand, people. I understand. He didn't perform this past week. He actually just disappeared. He never showed up to the game. Okay. Especially against a team that wasn't great. That Lions defense isn't fantastic. We all know that. But he didn't show up. It's not a big deal. Against the Patriots, I feel George Kittle will be able to produce. If Austin Seferian Jenkins can score a touchdown against the Patriots, why can't George Kittle? Okay, that's the logic behind it. I like George Kittle this week. I think you should fire him up. Do not be afraid to start him. I know many of you are going to ask, should I start Jared Cook over Kittle or it's Kittle? Okay, my rankings will give you a better idea of how to approach that situation. Okay, now going into my sits of the week. All right, these past couple weeks, I have been very vocal with the idea that, okay, if you sit somebody, then, understand that I am only telling you to sit these players to keep you safe. Okay, last week I told you to sit 2 tight ends, and they both happen to do well, okay? Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you should take my start and sits oppositely, right? Maybe you should start David Njoku or Austin Hooper this week. I dare you, okay? Maybe you should. But otherwise this week, David Njoku's production has not been great. His fantasy opportunity hasn't been great. I thought with the departure and the injury that Josh Gordon sustained last week, I thought that David Njoku would continue to be a bigger part of this offense, but that couldn't be farther from the honest truth. David Njoku, let's pull up these stats. In Week 1, 7 targets. Week 2, 7 targets. Okay, great. He can catch half of his targets like Golden Tate does, and he doesn't get any yards. In Week 1, 13 yards. In Week 2, 20 yards. The average yards per route is probably really low for David Njoku as of right now. They don't probably send him on, much other than like slants, digs, drags over the middle, and or outs. That's probably his entire route tree. He'll run a slant maybe once every 10 plays. Or not a slant, excuse me, a streak or a 9 route. Up the seam or up the hash marks. Anyway, David Njoku, I don't really trust him this week against the Jets. I'd rather not. So I'm going to go ahead and say sit him. Austin Hooper, another guy I don't really trust. Now, look, here's the thing about Austin Hooper. He has performed way better than David Njoku as of late. I understand that. So maybe Austin Hooper has an opportunity. But listen, just hear me out, okay? I think of these two, who is going to probably be the better option this week? It's probably David Njoku. On Thursday night, with me saying that you shouldn't start him, he probably is already pissed off hearing me, and he's thinking, wow, I'm going to score some fantasy points this week. So here it comes. David Njoku is probably going to be the better opportunity and the better start this week out of these two. I just don't like the idea of Austin Hooper starting on my fantasy team because with Julio, Tevin Coleman, with Mohamed Sanu out there, with Calvin Ridley finally showing up. I mean, and Matt Ryan wants to run 2 touchdowns a game. The way I see it, I don't know if there's enough mouths to feed. I don't think Austin Hooper is going to be able to consistently put up fantasy points the way that you need him to at the tight end position. Anyway, those are my 2 sits of the week. Let's get right into it. Okay, so, I mean, it's going to be lit. Honestly, this is the way I see it, okay? My top 5, 6, 7, 8 tight ends are going to continuously be the same. Why? Because they are literally the best tight ends in the NFL. And they're the best tight ends in fantasy football, okay? Number 1, Robert Gronkowski, playing against the one and only Lions defense this week, a defense that is going to get, I mean, I'm telling you it's going to be a shootout, people. I'm telling you right now. Gronk is going to be utilized. You know, this past week, I get it. Against the Jaguars, he just didn't perform, okay? Plain and simple, did not perform. You know, Tom Brady's a little pissed off. He's a little ticked off. They're going to turn it around. Gronkowski's going to have a good week. He's going to show why he's the best tight end in football. Okay, Travis Kelce has finally woken up from his slumber. Ended up putting up some ridiculous fantasy numbers. If I'm not mistaken, about 27 points in half-point PPR fantasy. Just an absolute animal last week. Playing against the 49ers, I mean, get him ready. He's starting. Zach Ertz, another guy, another one of these top 3 must-have tight ends. With the return of Carson Wentz, I mean, Zach Ertz in the first 2 weeks hasn't been bad. Okay, week 1 was a little shaky, but that was Thursday Night Football. Everybody's shaky on Thursday Night Football. Zach Ertz last week performed well. This week with Carson Wentz returning against a Colts defense, I like Zach Ertz. My number 4 tight end, a guy that's going to probably always be outside of the top 3, in my opinion, for weeks to come. Jordan Reed. He has Alex Smith, which is a great plus for him, but I think that with the entire injury deal and the fact that Alex Smith doesn't really like to throw the ball down the field much, he'd rather throw it to Chris Thompson out the back. I mean, the way I see it, I think he's going to consistently be a good tight end on a week-to-week basis. He's going to end up on my top 10 tight ends of the week, right, when it comes to fantasy scoring. But is he going to be the top end or the bottom end? I see him at the middle, okay? That's where he's consistently going to be, and that's not a bad thing because, honestly, I'd rather just have the average tight end than the guy that's going to pop off one week and then disappear the next week. I don't like volatile players very much when it comes to fantasy. I like consistent, secondary pieces. Like my wide receiver 3 should be consistent. My tight end should be consistent. And then my volatile players can be my RB1 and 2, where Zeke either gets 30 or he gets 15. That's what I'm talking about, volatile, okay? Anyway, let's go to number 5, Jimmy Graham, who stepped up this past week. Had a pretty good game, had a lot of targets, was utilized way more within the offense. I like that. As the season progresses, hopefully he can become more and more of a option within this offense to help him blossom into a good tight end option. I think he's going to continue to get better. I like Jimmy Graham going into this week, playing against, if I'm not mistaken, the Green Bay Packers play against, and my suspicions were wrong. They play against the Redskins. Oh, okay, so it's a tight end matchup. Who's going to be the better tight end, Jordan Reed or Jimmy Graham? Go to the comment section and answer below. My next tight end, my first start of the week, we have over here George Kittle. I like him at number 6, playing against the KC defense. I think Kansas City, they're, as I mentioned before, in prior videos, the fact of the matter is their defense isn't great. I think Kittle can be a great wide receiver-esque option. I know he's a tight end, but he's going to be he's mainly a wide receiver. Garrett Selleck scored a touchdown last week, and took away a little bit of his fantasy production. But I think Kittle is the best tight end option and the best receiver if Marcus Goodwin is not alive and well for the 49ers. Number 7, Kyle Rudolph, a guy that you should consistently continue to start. I have him as I think before the season I said he was going to be the number 5 tight end. I'm telling you, there's still an opportunity there. Against the Bills, a very, very, very weak defense. He should have a good opportunity to score a touchdown this week. Number 8, Evan Ingram came out of his shell, finally showed up, but it was in garbage time. Does that make a difference? Yes, it does. I don't trust him as much because of it. That's why he's at number 8 this week, playing against the Tennessee Titans defense, who's not Tennessee Titans, a Houston Texans defense. No, he plays against Seattle. No, he doesn't. What am I actually doing? My brain is crisscrossed. They play against Houston. Wow, I am just completely off my stuff right now. Evan Ingram against the Houston Texans. Jonnu Smith didn't do anything last week. Does that mean that Evan Ingram's not going to show up? No, that's literally the farthest possible take that you could have from Earth. The way I see it, I think Evan Ingram is going to be a vital part of this offense. He is, the next option. He's honestly the fourth wide receiver option here. That's what the struggle is, right? Odell, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, and then it's Evan Ingram, which sucks, but I think he's good enough of a tight end to be able to produce with the opportunities that he gets. My number 10, we're going back down to 9. I didn't talk about Jared Cook yet. Jared Cook, playing against the Dolphins this past week, showed that he is still being used within this offense and that he's going to be able to potentially be a good top 10 tight end as the season progresses. Yes, he's way older than these guys that I've mentioned before, but I think with Derek Carr continuously going to him over the middle, he's going to be able to put up fantasy points. He's just got to get that ever-elusive touchdown in his back pocket to help you out on a weekly basis. Number 10, my second start of the week, O.J. Howard. Fire him up, people. If you don't have any better tight ends, if you don't have anybody above him, I would say O.J. Howard is the best bet. He's a little volatile in the idea that there is a potential that Deshaun Jackson and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are the only guys to catch the ball this week. There's a potential for that. But I honestly think that because of what Travis Kelce was able to do last week to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, there is an opportunity that O.J. Howard can turn it around and, continue his streak of, great fantasy weeks. I mean, last week, 17 points in fantasy as a tight end. Come on. That's ridiculous. O.J. Howard shouldn't have had that many points, but let's get on the hype train. Number 11, Eric Ebron, a guy who I mentioned earlier this week when it comes to picking him up off the waiver wire. I think he's going to continue. I mean, these past 2 weeks, double-digit fantasy points. Why? Because he's caught touchdowns. If he continues to be an Andrew Luck target in the red zone, he's going to continue to be relevant. I like Eric Ebron as the number 11. Number 12, we have Jesse James. I've folded. I've put a Steelers tight end on my rankings list. I told myself I would never do it. It's too late now. Jesse James is number 12. He should have a great week. It's going to be a shootout. He'll have his opportunities. You just got to hope that Vance McDonald doesn't take it away from him. Number 13, Jack Doyle. I know Eric Ebron's a stud, but Jack Doyle does not disappear like this. He's going to be more a part of this offense. He is a PPR tight end with the upside of a touchdown, but don't guarantee upon it. Okay. Otherwise, Jack Doyle is my number 13. Number 14, Trey Burton. Not a big fan. I don't know how much I can trust in Trey Burton anymore. What did he do on Monday? Let's pull up these stats real quick. I know he scored a touchdown, okay? But 4 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown, that's nothing to be proud of. And half-point PPR, what is that? 2, 4 points, 10 points. Congratulations, you were a decent tight end. But what does that do for you? You had to score that touchdown. Your tight end is touchdown dependent. I don't really like that. That's too volatile for me. I'd rather have a Jack Doyle who's just going to rack in receptions or at least have the opportunities from the targets perspective. Number 15, one of my sits of the week. Now imagine, if I have David Njoku as a sit at number 15, then what do you think my opinions on Tyler Eifert and Will Disley are? Exactly. Thank you very much. You answered the question. I don't like the idea of starting Tyler Eifert this week or Will Disley. I understand that they've both... I understand that Will Disley's been, pretty productive, right? Week 1 scored a touchdown, had 100 receiving yards, and, he had a touchdown this past week, right? He's been decent as of late. Tyler Eifert, on the other hand, is not being used as a vital part of this offense. He's no longer the Tyler Eifert of old. He's not the 2015 Tyler Eifert. He's not there yet, okay? He hasn't shown up. But, when it comes back to David Njoku, the way I see it, if Jarvis Landry and Antonio Callaway and Rashad Higgins, maybe a little bit of Duke Johnson. This offense for the Browns is not that good to be able to have 5 good fantasy options. They really just have 2, maybe 3 at max. So David Njoku is not a part of that equation. And that's pretty much my tight end rankings of the week. I told you it's going to be a little bit of a shorter video. I'm tired. It's about 9 o'clock here. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Tomorrow, we are going over the Fantasy Gauntlet. So be ready for that, people. Otherwise, if you have any questions, go down in the comment section. Other people will be willing to help you, and I will get to your questions as soon as I possibly can. Until then, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.